We are excited to talk about a massive subject here in the downtown, all things housing. We have an excellent panel of both public and private folks that are heavily invested in housing here in our downtown and in our community. All right. First question, Matt, is for you. Can you provide a brief overview of the housing market in Madison in general, but in particular in downtown? What are we looking at the number of units in the city, the number of units in downtown, and I think importantly, how many units do we need to keep up with our growing population? Probably true.
There we go. Okay. Thanks. Well, I guess I'll start with a history lesson to get to your question.
I like it.
So
You have 2 hours.
thank you. So I guess if we go back to the end of the Great Recession, 2010, City of Madison started to speed up its growth. And so in response, we had to add a lot of housing units. So over these last 15 years, the City of Madison has added about 35,000 new homes to the city. So that's about a 30% increase in our housing stock. And despite adding all those units, we've consistently had a low vacancy rate, 3%, 4%, something like that. If you look at downtown in particular, it grew even faster. So downtown added about 7,500 new housing units. That's a 60% increase in housing stock in downtown. So incredible growth, sort of outpacing the rest of the city. And I should just note that of those 7,500 units in downtown, over 400 are permanent or long-term affordable. So we've been building a lot of things. Pandemic happens, things get even tighter. So our market has been really abnormal for the last few years, where our vacancy rate has been consistently one of the lowest, if not the lowest vacancy rate in the country. And as a result, our rents have gone up faster than almost every other place in the country. So this housing crunch has meant we've had to add a ton of new housing units, and we've been doing it. And people are building overall larger buildings than we've really ever seen in the city of Madison. So it used to be an apartment building was 100 units. Now an apartment building is consistently 250, 300 units. Those are things we just didn't see a lot of before. And with all that construction, our vacancy rate went from insanely low to just low. So we're getting a little bit closer to normal. I think some people talk about our market cooling off. I think that's misleading. I think we went from a place that is very unhealthy and abnormal to something slightly more normal. And I guess the question is, how much do we have to build? Well, as long as Epic, Exact, other employers are growing, as long as downtown is a great place to be, we have to continue building at something like the pace that we've been seeing, just to keep up with the growth that's happening in the city of Madison.
Dane County recently published their report on the Dane County housing that we needed 7,000 units throughout the Dane County area over the next 10 years, each of those years, just to keep up with growth. Let's talk about growth quickly, though. One of the questions we had there was about population growth. We continue to see significant population growth in Madison, certainly, but also in Dane County. Yet it seems, my colleague Zach Brandon always points out that every department administration or CARPC prediction has been short. How do we really plan for getting even more aggressive with our growth patterns in our population? How do we keep up with housing?
Sure. So just this week, the new estimates came up from CARPC, and once again, unsurprisingly, they figured they've been underestimating our growth, and estimates jumped again, particularly City of Madison, much higher growth rate than anyone else and what they had anticipated. And so on the city side, I can't make people build buildings, but the City of Madison has been working to make it easier. So looking at the zoning code, how can we make it smoother, more predictable, faster for people to build their buildings? And once we say go for it, how can we make it faster that people can go pull their permits and get in the ground? So we're doing, I'm not going to say everything we can, because we can always do more, but we are taking an intentional look at our processes to make sure that it's not the city getting in the way of people building the buildings.
Yeah, we want to say a big thank you to Matt Wachter. About a year ago, downtown Madison, in conjunction with our partners at Smart Growth, created a report on the pre and post entitlement processes in 5 cities in the Dane County regional area: Madison, Middleton, Sun Prairie, Monona, Fitchburg, and for one other. But it was, thank you, Sun Prairie. Wow, Tara Grace read the report. Everybody, let's give a round of applause to Tara Grace. But it showed, that Madison's doing some things well, but maybe the post-entitlement process is not. And you have dedicated the resources to make some changes by moving Heather Stouter over to your special projects team to really concentrate on that. So Matt, we're thankful for your leadership and the leadership of the city of Madison and the mayor in particular. Dan, would love to talk about the private sector, right? You just completed a project on East Wilson Street, 109, which we're very excited about. Just yesterday, they announced some new tenants in their food hall. This is not about food today, but who doesn't want a How Long Bay in the center of downtown? Yes. Senior machetes too? Anyway, not about that. But what do you see as the pace of development for new market rate housing in downtown? Do you see it continuing into the foreseeable future?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And thanks for having me. I think food and housing are very much related, and can get into that. But I would say, I mean, the short answer is yes. The pace of housing development in downtown Madison will continue for a while. There will always be some ebb and flow. There's macro factors, interest rates, construction pricing that will lead to kind of peaks and valleys. But overall, downtown Madison is a place people want to live. Matt talked about the city overall, our growth that's occurring. And a lot of that is happening in downtown. I think, as Matt mentioned, there has perhaps been a little bit of softening in the market, but it's really gone from like red hot, too hot to just hot. I think the most recent CBRE Q2 2025 report had downtown's vacancy rate at like 97% or something. And that a lot of that is because downtown Madison is just a fantastic. Sorry, occupancy.
The other way around.
If
Yes.
vacancy was at 97%, we'd have a problem.
This would be a whole
You know what I
different
meant.
conversation.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and that speaks to the lifestyle downtown. And we're seeing this at our building. So as Jason mentioned, we just delivered the 109 at 109 East Wilson Street. 340 apartments. I think it's the largest rental building that downtown Madison has seen, at least in the last decade. And it's a fantastic building. And I've been talking to a lot of our new tenants. We've been seeing a lot of interest and a lot of leasing of 3 bedrooms and penthouses. A lot of people who are by choice renters who are saying, we want to, the kids are out of the house. The spouse and I want to sell the big house in the suburbs and be downtown and be in the action. A lot of that is because they love the building and our amenities and what we offer there. But what I'm hearing is mostly it's a love for downtown Madison. They want the views of the lake. They want to be a couple blocks from the farmers market. And we're leaning into that. We want this to be, a lifestyle choice. We're doing things like, sponsoring concerts on the square and things like that. I'll say this right now. Speaking of food, we've got this amazing restaurant and food hall on the ground floor. If you're a DMI member or any of your employees want to lease an apartment in our building, we'll give you a $100 gift card.
Always be selling.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
Lease an apartment, $100. All your favorite food is going to be downstairs from where
like
you
a
live.
recipe for disaster for me. I would like my entire paycheck. Pam Christensen is here. Can I have a raise and then move into 109?
So
She's our
yeah,
board chair,
I realize there's some shameless activity here in my answer, but to answer the question, yes, the pace of housing downtown is going to continue for a while, and that's all because of how great of a place it is to live.
Yeah, I think one interesting statistic, thanks to 109, but there are 4 apartment buildings that have opened in downtown Madison just this summer, which has added about 900 to 925 units between 109, Baker's Place, Virtue, and the Irwin on Willie Street. All those sort of traditional apartment housing. What's it going to take, Dan, do you think, to see even more development than we've seen today here in the downtown?
Well, I mean, a lot of the challenge is just the supply constraint. You know, downtown Madison is on an isthmus, as we all know. There's a Capitol View height limit, as we all know. There's only so many places to build. In the 2012 downtown plan that the city is updating now, there's a great map in that plan that identifies every site that's like over half of an acre and is a potential redevelopment site. And if you look back at that map today, most of those sites have been redeveloped. So I think we're seeing now is more creativity around where can we find places to squeeze a building. There's a couple of things in the pipeline now, like the Jeff buildings, the Brayton lot, which you know, is an exciting opportunity. So I think there's some locations east of the square. Wilson Street feels really good right now. I mean, the new infrastructure is there, some exciting new buildings. So I think there's a lot of energy on that east side of the square where we'll see some great new projects over the next few years. But there's just only so much land, and I think the demand is there. And it's going to continue to be there. The big challenge long term is where do you put the supply?
Well, I would just say a thank you to Dan, though, too. You talk about the importance of downtown, right, and place and space. The new 109 building, for those that don't know, has a two-story knockout towards the waterfront, which we're hoping once the Madison Lakeway project gets going. And if you want to listen to my next speech, it starts at 9:05, literally just below here. So come on down. But they did a great work of hopefully integrating that future project into their development, along with, we should acknowledge, the city of Madison and the great easement that was placed in just down the street to create access points between the water and downtown, which, look, the isthmus is our competitive advantage, right? Us and Seattle are the only two downtowns in the country, but yet we really don't have great access to the water. So thank you for that. Lori, certainly want to talk about the projects that you're working on, in particular, affordable housing. Can you provide a brief overview of the affordable housing market and the status of affordable housing in our city and in downtown?
Yes, thank you so much, Jason. So we are, as I mentioned, developers, but we're a nonprofit. There aren't a lot of nonprofits that are developing affordable workforce housing, but the one thing nonprofits do is they tend to be permanent affordable housing. So we partnered with the city of Madison over the past several years on a couple of projects at the 1954 East Washington, and we have 2.5 acres there. We built a 44 unit with home funds. We built named after James Grasskamp, by the way. And then we built a Lillian 24 unit named after James Grasskamp's mother. And then we just rededicated the park. But it's getting harder and harder to build. So we now broke ground on a 40 unit, and it becomes very, very difficult for several reasons. In the past 5 years, particularly in the past 3 years, interest rates have gone up. Availability of materials have been very hard to get. On our 52 unit in Middleton, we had to buy electrical, like off of Facebook, off of another developer that we knew, just to be able to get that project into the ground. The components, they're hard to get. The land, the cost is higher. And now, of course, we're adding on to that the tariffs. So it's very hard to make these projects pencil out. But MDC, our affordable housing projects are rare. We do the kind of the missing middle. This is just a 40 unit. But a bigger view of what's going on in downtown Madison really comes from me being the manager of the Dane Workforce Housing Fund. And we've seen about 15 different projects downtown. We funded about 10 of them. And what we're seeing in Fund 1, when we started investing back in 2020, we were seeing the cost per unit ranging from $195,000 per unit in 2023 to $332,000 per unit in 2025. That's a 70% increase in the cost per unit to build, which is one of the reasons they're building so many bigger buildings to get that cost per unit down. But this is just on our pool of 15 different projects. Most concerning thing is the value per unit. The gap has widened significantly between the cost and the value. So in the values in 2023 range at about 180,000 to 2025, 225,000. So you can see the values have only gone up 25%, but the costs have gone up 70%. So it makes these projects very difficult, requires more equity on the part of the developer, requires more innovative sources of funds. MDC uses a double tax exemption bond process and partners with a local bank to get our rate down. But there aren't a lot of sources out there other than the fact that the city has really stepped in on affordable housing funds, the county has stepped in, and there are other sources as well, including the Dane Workforce Housing Funds. So in Fund 2, it's even more concerning. The value as a percentage of the costs, it's being driven by another thing. The cost of land in downtown Madison has gone up significantly. So it used to be on the first few projects that we did, the cost for land was running at about 15, 16,000 for a 200 unit. Now with the, really nice new developments that are being done for student housing, we're seeing those costs go up to 80 to 90,000 per unit. So it makes it very hard for affordable housing developers to be able to acquire land if they don't already own it, and then to be able to build. Now, we think that all types of housing is great, and we are literally right next to us on the 40 unit. We have a student housing CRG group, and they're going to do a great job. But these are the things that we're seeing in affordable housing, making it very hard to work out unless you have hundreds of units. So most of the projects that we're now financing, they have 150, 250 units, and they're all in the downtown area.
So certainly a very difficult picture right now for affordable housing. What can we do to build more affordable housing units?
Well, I don't know. I don't have a magic ball, but I can tell you what we do. And we save up equity, and we put in as much equity as possible. So prior to the last 5 years, you could put in maybe 80% equity and actually build a project, or excuse me, 50% equity and actually build a project with other sources. Now, the capital that you have to put in to build any project, whether it's affordable or market rate, that equity has to really be in there, because otherwise you can't afford the loan payments because the loans are so big. So that's what really, needs to happen, is we need to be able to acquire some of these properties. And the city has a nice plan that they're working on to help acquire lots to help build more affordable housing in the downtown and the greater Madison area.
Yeah, Matt, I'd love to come back to you on that. But the city has taken several steps to try to improve the affordable housing supply here in the city. Land banking, credits, all these sorts of things, your own fund. Quickly go over, what the city is doing to try to help this difficult problem.
Sure. So about a decade ago, we created the Affordable Housing Fund. So it's millions of dollars a year that goes out to fund other people to build affordable housing. But we get control of it because we say it's got to be on transit. We want you to have more 3 bedrooms or more really low income units than someone would normally build. So we incent the things that we want to see. And that's helped us create a pipeline of thousands of new affordable units that probably would not have otherwise been built. So that's a great tool. We also fund nonprofits to do interesting projects, not 300 units, but townhomes, other things like that. And then we develop land ourselves. So not too far away at the Triangle, we are in the middle of constructing new replacement public housing and additional units that'll happen after that. The city has a land banking fund, which Lori mentioned, where we go out and assemble difficult to acquire properties, and we clean them up, put in the base infrastructure with the idea that we would then probably turn it over to a developer to build affordable housing. There's not a silver bullet for any of this stuff. A lot of the solutions are money, because we are not allowed to, by state law, to just tell people you have to build affordable housing. So it is really all carrots and no sticks. And I guess we also have a height bonus in downtown, which lets you, in certain situations, build extra stories on your building beyond what would normally be allowed in the code. In exchange, you have to guarantee that some of those units will be affordable. And that's really been a tool that we've been using to build affordable student housing, where some of these new buildings get 2, 3, 4 extra stories, but in exchange, oftentimes 10% of those beds are going to be discounted for students who UW is referring into them who need additional financial assistance.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is no panacea, but I would say, there are lots of folks doing some pretty creative things to make this happen in the downtown. I think we should certainly acknowledge that. The work of Bayview, right, is a exemplary project at the corner of West Wash and Regent. And certainly what you're doing with the CDA, what the folks are doing at St. John's Lutheran Church. But I also want to acknowledge we do have a couple of very innovative developers here in the crowd, at Mark Edelson and Tyler Koreshi with Threshold, that are really very progressive, avant-garde in what they're doing with some new spaces we're seeing in town all across America with church spaces, right? That, churches are really evaluating what their congregations look like, what their spaces look like, and they own a lot of land. And so there are some really interesting models that are happening. Margaret, I want to get to you though. This is a big question. Over 80% of the downtown Madison population is ages 15 to 34. A lot of students in downtown. And boy, are we thankful. The vibrancy, the energy, everything that it brings, the economic driver that UW is so impactful. But can you talk about the private student housing market in downtown? And what are you seeing as far as market trends regarding quality, amenities, and affordability? And what are the top priorities of students when they're searching for housing? Because they're a huge part of the downtown market.
Yes, absolutely. Can everybody hear me? First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. This is, I've been here since, the early 90s, came here as a student, and to see the level of investment here in Madison is unbelievable in all markets. The student story is a little different in terms of the sub-market, and it's great. It's interesting. It used to be in the early 90s that there were housing options, but not many. And all of the students would move out on August 15th or move out on August 14th and move in on August 15th. And they used to have what they used to call a hippie Christmas, for those of it, whether that's politically correct, I don't know.
Where did all those students
But if
go
you
for that
remember
one
that, it was wild. It was wild, but it wasn't great for students. And so to give you some perspective, starting about maybe let's go 2022-ish out, and let's go out to 2028. If you aggregate the data and you look at this purpose-built student housing that's being built, there's about 5,000 apartments being built, already built or being built by 2028. And that represents about 12,000 beds additionally for students. In student housing, we talk about leasing by the bed, so there's apartments and beds, but that might be new vernacular for some. So as we approach campus, people can see all the new purpose-built student housing, the luxury, highly amenitized buildings. They're gorgeous. Some are nicer than our homes, definitely nicer than my home. I'm happy for the students. This is a good thing, I think. UW Fast Facts tells us that last year, 2024, there were about 37,000 undergraduates at UW-Madison. And as things stabilize, our hope is that growth will, continue. But that's not for me to say. That's just for me to hope. So anyway, this is a good trend. It shows that the private market has resoundingly answered the call for more student housing options in Madison. And, there are many students that want to live in these high-rise luxury apartments, and they're willing to pay for it. And then there are some who want to look at the other options, and other options are still available. Kudos to the city and DMI and everyone else who participated in this new transportation with BRT. BRT allows for, students to go out a little bit farther. My daughter actually, when she was a student, lived in the Hilldale area, used BRT and the transportation daily. And I think that offers a lot of value for students. So there's a wider options in terms of dependent, for students. Since 1990, what students are looking for hasn't really changed. They want to live where their friends live. They want dependability and management. They want safety. They want affordability, and they want high-speed internet. God forbid the high-speed internet goes down for 30 seconds, that you cut off the air. And
I think it is up there with air and food.
it really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think, what's interesting is in terms of today's market and today's students, and I think many of us out here have college-age students. What's affordable? Well, some students want the penthouse in the luxury high-rise, and some people want the shared bedroom on Regent Street or Spring Street, and that's affordable to them. The biggest thing is that there are many, many options for students today. There's more purpose-built student housing options. Given the population, though, one might ask, at what point do we hit the tipping point? How many students are willing to live in these luxury housing apartments? I don't think we've hit that tipping point yet. We'll see how things absorb over the next several years. And again, for our UW friends, if enrollment continues to increase, we'll be fine. We'll be great. And hopefully many of these students will stay here after they graduate and continue to invest in our community. That's the great thing here. So the good news is that there are many options. We'll see what happens to the vacancy rate. The other news to watch is how do things absorb. But we're happy for the students in terms of how many options there are.
I would thank Margaret, several folks, Brenda Gonzalez, Paul Veltum, many folks that are in this crowd that took part in a really great public-private partnership last year talking about the affordable student housing working group and made recommendations to the developers, the city, and to the university about how we can improve the situation. The one thing we learned, 52,000 students, there's 52,000 definitions of what affordable is. Truly. And so it is different for each one. I want to take just a minute or to talk about not just apartment housing, but owner-occupied housing. We are now starting to hear about, a few more potential condo projects that could be happening. One of the proposals for the Brayton lot included some condo projects. Where is the sort of future of the near-term future of owner-occupied housing in downtown? I'll leave that for any one of the four of you. Or none of you. Okay, I'll answer the question. I didn't give this one to him ahead of time. Yes.
That's not fair to only prepared questions, please.
Sorry. Okay, I retract that question.
I could take a shot at it. We built a lot of condos in downtown Madison prior to the Great Recession. Not we, like the community, and that completely came to a halt. They're tough to finance. Post Great Recession, banks placed some additional rules on what you need to do to finance condo buildings. There's some liability that comes with them, and I think the from a personal financial perspective, the trade-off of buying versus renting, the economics of that have changed. Prior to 2008, your monthly mortgage, principal and interest, insurance, and taxes were on average less than the cost of renting an apartment. Now that's flipped. So to continue shamelessly plugging my building, we have a lot of folks that are moving out of privately owned housing to live in our building, who are people of means, who are saying there's better places for me to put my capital than housing that I live in. When you rent an apartment or buy when you buy housing, you're doing two things. You're giving yourself a place to live, which is a service, and you're giving yourself an investment. And if you're looking at the math and it makes more sense to rent, and the investment isn't worth it, you're going to rent. So we're seeing a lot of by choice renters coming out of single family homes, which, the flip side of that is, though we're a rental building that's creating housing stock that goes on the market as those people leave their housing behind. But I think the answer is, like why aren't we building more condos? I think fundamentally, one, our rental market has been really strong, so there's not necessarily a reason to. If you're like our company, the game plan is buy and hold forever, provide great services, and I think just the kind of logic of what makes sense for the consumer has changed a bit.
Oh, Matt. Oh, now you all want to talk.
Yeah, it's time to think. Exactly. I think the most important thing you said is you have people renting by choice. And I think from the city's perspective, we want to make sure that people have choices. And so whether it's renting or in a condo building that we hope someone would build, we're also looking at how can we take, single family or small lots and maybe divide them into two so that someone can build a home where they couldn't build it before. So we're trying to be more flexible to get a much wider variety of housing types and have it not just be the new supply is not just coming from large apartment buildings. It's coming in a variety of shapes, variety of price points, and choices to own or rent.
All right. Last question. One sentence each. How is the downtown housing market going to evolve in the next 3 to 5 years? Matt, we'll start with you. You have the mic in your hand.
Okay, so you gave us this question, but you didn't say one sentence.
Well, you all the ones that took up all the time with the other answers to the questions.
All right, so it's going to be
Okay, fair. See, I won that battle.
It'll be a little bit of a run on. I think we just need to separate what's going to happen on Main Street versus on Wall Street. So Main Street, I think we're going to still have strong demand. People are going to still move here, but it's a lot harder to predict what's going to happen on Wall Street, where interest rates are going to go, where inflation is going to go, where tariffs are going to go. That could disrupt our ability to add to match that demand.
Yeah, I think the answer is I don't know. I mean, I came to development, later in my career and have been surprised by just how incredibly hard it is. And we bought the building. People are laughing. It's hard. We bought this site in 2021 and are now delivering in 2025. So it's a 4-year process of just white knuckle, like we don't know what's going to happen. And just millions and millions of dollars out the door. Key there is good partners like Potter Lawson and Findorf to help make sure that you're doing something that's going to work. But yeah, I mean, the answer is 3 to 5 years. We don't know what's going to happen, but the important thing is that downtown Madison is still going to be a place people want to be, a place people want to live.
I'd just say that people that have site control might still be building, or maybe some of the city's lot might become available. But as I would agree with Matt that it's really all what's going to happen on Wall Street, the impact on interest rates, the impact from policies in DC with tariffs and costs continuing to go up. So I think it's going to be neutral, and those projects that do get done are going to be very high number unit counts, because that's almost the only way you can make them happen.
So can I do a run-on sentence?
Absolutely. I mean, I think my whole life is one run-on sentence.
So I think Madison is going to fare really well from a local standpoint. Everything the three of you said is true. But from a local standpoint, I think the challenge is going to be, from a student housing perspective, non-students will not live in purpose-built student housing. And there are 40,000 beds, according to Maxfield, within 1 mile of downtown. So I think we need to really focus on workforce, affordable, market rate, let that student absorb, and let's see where we end up. But the reality is Madison is an incredible city. Many people want to invest here and be here, and so I think we just keep working hard at it.
Awesome. Let's give a huge round of applause to Margaret Watson, Lori Heineman, Dan Canelli, and Matt Wachter. Discussion about housing today. Want to say a huge thanks to our sponsors, Carlson, Black, O'Callahan, and Battenberg, Ho-Chunk Gaming, Madison, JP Cullen, Lake Ridge Bank, Urban Land Interest, Madison Development Corporation, our rotating sponsor, our nonprofit sponsor, and Go Seekers Not in the Hall, numbers for nonprofits, and our good friends at the Edgewater Hotel. Hopefully we'll see you. You can all check out, actually, the 109 building on 109 on 10/9, October 9th. We did not do that on purpose. We did. Well, it did. Yes. Yes. I didn't. Someone on our staff probably did.
Jason's not really involved in the details.
Do you really want me involved in the day-to-day activities of DMI? This would not happen. So thank you, John, Madeline, and Heather, and Emily. All right, come join us to see 109 on 10/9. We'll see you downtown. Thank you for your support of Downtown Madison Inc., and thank you for support of Downtown. Have a great rest of your weekend.